So I emailed him back. I didn't want to sound like I was doing backflips, which I was.
I really wanted to go there. Like, I wanted to go there that minute. And John was like, no, we can't drive to Mississippi right now because, we had things to do.
I think it was like 10 p.m. And I was like, yeah, I could be interested in that. I'll give you a call tomorrow morning.
So I was ready to go. And John's like, no, this guy's going to ship us everything that we want. He's so ready to ship it to us.
I called him in the morning and he said, yeah, my name's John. And, I've got a bunch of Wurlitzer speakers. And then he actually, his voice got a little serious for a second. He's like, I think I have a lot more Wurlitzer stuff too. And he's like, but I don't really know what all of it is. I was like, okay. I was like, did you buy a warehouse with all this stuff in it? And he was like, no, I didn't buy the warehouse. I'm a electronics liquidator. And then he said, but the owners found us to sell the stuff for them, and they want to move in on Monday. I was like, can you just send me photos of some of the other stuff? And I can also, since you have part numbers, I can send you, I had all the part numbers that Janice had been giving me over the years for the things that were my hot list items that I went through a lot of. So I consolidated my part numbers to a list and sent it over to him. And I said, anything that has this part number on it, I'm interested and I will definitely buy from you. And he got back to me, sent me an email. I'm having some trouble finding these things on the list. I think I may have found a couple of them. And I was like, okay, well, actually, if you don't mind, so I called him, I think. And I was like, if you don't mind staying on the phone, you can go inside and, I could describe them to you and you can just tell me what you find. And the call would drop. There'd be like static and I couldn't hear him. He couldn't hear me. And we realized that there's no cell reception in this building. There's actually not much cell reception even close to the building.
We had to somehow help these people 1,000 miles away who had no cell reception. We had to help them find these random pieces of plastic that we needed. There was no reception, so we were kind of waiting all day to hear back from him. And then we get this huge photo drop, 15 different pictures of the warehouse.
They were, the images were being shared and not really loading because he didn't really have reception where he was. So he would send them and I'd just get icons and maybe an hour later they'd start loading.
Whatever we saw there was the most tantalizing thing we've ever seen because it was just stuff. It was just boxes and boxes and shelves, and we didn't even know what we were looking at because it's just hard to wrap your head around what is in this picture. It's just a pile.
Some images would come through and there would be a bunch of boxes, many of them marked Wurlitzer, so they were original boxes, and
everything said Wurlitzer on it. Boxes that said, "Gee, Dad, it's a Wurlitzer," original boxes, and it was we weren't seeing anything in the pictures. We weren't seeing anything that we asked for in those pictures, but what we did see, we wanted it.
There'd be half of a Wurlitzer on the floor and a visualizer, and I'd be like, ooh, I kind of want those, and I would circle the image, circle that part of the image, send it back, and he'd get it an hour later, and like my circle would be too thin and he wouldn't really know what I was circling, and it was tough.
We couldn't even tell him what we wanted from the picture because there was so much stuff in the picture. It would be like, I need the box on the right, like 4 boxes down, but one to the left, and the red thing. And then he'd be like, which red thing?
So the idea that he could mail us parts was starting to fade, and the idea that there were lots of things there that I didn't even know about was growing, and the cost of shipping in my mind was growing, and the time it would take him to ship wouldn't be worthwhile, and so we'd have to spend a lot to get all these boxes in the mail. So we made the decision that we just had to drive.
We just knew there was so much stuff there because of the pictures we were getting. And so finally it was like Wednesday, and it's like, I think we have to go. And John was like, okay. And he called him up, and he's kind of like, feeling him out. He's like, should we go there? And he's like, no, don't come here. He's like, everything's getting thrown away on Monday. There's no time to look through it. And also another Wurlitzer guy is coming.
He didn't know the name of who it was, but he gave me an idea where he was driving from, and because I don't think he knew exactly where, but he said he's driving from around here. So I narrowed it down to a couple people, and I figured, they only had the ability to take so much with them, and they weren't the types to just try and clean it out, and I feel like it still would have been worthwhile. So we went.
We also just had to go because we had to see the place, because we had thought about it like so many times, and we always wondered like where these things came from, these wonderful things in these wonderful boxes, and we need to see the source of them before we didn't have a chance to anymore. It was Thursday, and we left that night, and we just started driving. We're
no stranger to long drives, and sort of how we keep doing these long drives, like Oklahoma, Miami, is we have an enjoyable drive down. We get to stop and try out a restaurant on the way.
We were just driving. We did not stop. We didn't want to stop.
And we really believed them that they were going to be throwing everything out on Monday. So we really just had to make the best use of our time on the road and really just drive.
And the other thing was, like, we weren't talking to the owners. We had never talked to the owners. We were talking to the way the hierarchy was that somebody had bought the warehouse, and a work friend of one of the buyers was into the electronics. He was one of the electronics liquidators, and the guy that we were talking to was his partner. So we were talking to like a fourth party, and so like we were scared that when we got there we wouldn't be able to buy anything because we didn't know if we would be able to make a deal with the guy who actually owned the stuff. And that's why it was a very tense ride down, because we were just like, every possible thing that could go wrong was like going through my head. Like, we just drove for 2 days straight, and maybe we're not even going to be able to leave with anything.